Hello everyone. In this video, we look at filing. Filing, like sewing, is another basic jewelry technique. Now, basic does not mean simple or easy. It means it's a fundamental technique that's crucial to the process of making jewelry. It is one of the most difficult techniques and requires a lot of patience and a lot of practice. Let's see what tools and equipment we need. So we need hand files, and that's what it looks like from your toolkit. Handles, they could be plastic handles or wooden handles like these ones. Steel bench block, the sliding vernier calipers, the set square, and the ring clamp. It's not really a ring clamp. I will talk about that later. A file card. I will explain what this does later. Now, you have to get to know your tools and know the different parts of your tools. So, let's look at the different parts of a file without the handle. So, we have the file itself. This is the face of the file and the edges, of course. And this part, which will go into the handle later, is called the tang. Now, some files, like this one, have a safe edge. A safe edge means that it is smooth. It doesn't have any teeth. This one has teeth, just like the faces of the file. Hand files are sewed without handles, so you'll have to fit them together. There are two types of handles: the screw-on handles, you see the thread inside, and the press-on handle. You see that I have covered the jaws of the vise with copper sleeves, and that's to protect the file when I will use the vise to attach the handle. Let's look at how to attach the screw-on handle. The handle has threads inside so that when you insert the tang into the handle, you just need to turn on the handle, and that creates a thread onto the tang of the file, and you are then able to fit the handle securely to the file. Now, with the other type of handle, the press-on handle, there is no thread inside the handle, so you will insert the handle on the tang of the file, and then you need to hammer gently with a mallet to push the tang into the handle, and that will secure it. Again, you have to make sure it's nice and straight. It has to be very secure. You don't need to go all the way to the file itself, as long as it's nice and secure. Plastic or wood handle, it doesn't really matter. You choose the material you are more comfortable with. Both are fine. Whatever you do, you always must put the handle on. So it's very important to put the handle on your file. Do not ever try to file without the handle, or don't try to save money and not buy a handle. It just doesn't work, especially for the precision work that we require. There are also different types of files. That's what we're going to look at now. We identify files by mainly two things: the section, the cross-section of the file, and the cut or the coarseness of the file. So the section is, for instance, this is a half round file, so a flat side or flat face and a half round or round domed face. This one is different section. It's a flat file, rectangular, but we call it a flat file because the two faces are flat. For now, these are the two types of files that we're going to be using for our first projects, but there are other shapes. This is a triangular file, a round file, this is a barrette file. These are also different files. As you can see, they are much smaller. They don't have a separate handle. The handle is integrated into the file, and these are called needle files. But again, we'll keep these for later because we don't need them for our first project. So the other thing that we use to describe a type of file, other than the section or the cross-section, is the cut or coarseness of the file. It is described with numbers. So cut 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And this refers to the number of teeth on the file. So the more teeth per inch there are, the finer the file is. A file number 4 is much finer than a file number 2. So these are number 2. So a flat file and a half round file, cut number 2. Cut number 2 is a medium cut that is used for most jobs. You can actually find or feel the difference. So this is number 2, and this is a coarser one, which would be number 1. So the lower the number, the less teeth the file has, and the coarser it is. So number 1, much rougher. Number 2, finer. Now this one is a number 4, even finer. Again, the higher the number, the finer your file. For our specific project, we are going to start with a file that's a little coarser, cut number 1, and then we'll switch to cut number 2, which is again medium cut. So most of our filing job for this project will be done with cut number 2. The one thing that I should mention is that a rougher file is useful because it will remove more metal faster, which is nice. But that also means that you'll have less control because you remove more metal every time that you use your file. Now, coarser files like this one, cut number 1, will leave deeper marks after you've been filing. So you'll have to then switch to a finer file, in this case number 2. And sometimes we'll go even finer to cut number 4. Now, another type of file, other than the cut, and still referring to the teeth, this one has, compared to this one, both are half round files. But if you look at the files, you see that in this one, the grooves are all going in diagonal in the same direction. On this one, they intersect. So you actually have rows going in one direction and then rows going in the other direction. They are crossing. So this is a cross-cut file, and this is a single cut file. What's the difference? The cross-cut files, you see they also feel coarser and rougher. These will remove metal a little faster. So they are more efficient for certain things. It's good. Again, you have a little less control with that, so you have to be careful. These are the two hand files that we'll be using mostly, the flat file and the half round file. The half round file is a very useful file because it's a combination of two different shapes of files. It has a flat face and it has a domed or half round face. So it's you get two files in one. The other characteristic of this file is that it is tapered. This one is a blunt file, so same width all along. This one is tapered, so it gets thinner at the end, which can be very useful to access different places sometimes. The other uses of a half round file is that it can be used for filing curves. For instance, inside the ring. So you would use the domed side or the half round side, and you'll be able to access inside the ring. Or you can file around on the outside of a curve as well with the flat side, which you could do also with that, of course. So again, the half round file is a very useful file because it has these two different shapes and a tapered end. What are files used for? Files are used for removing metal. It's their general purpose. Let's look at a few specific examples. After sewing, the edges of a shape would be rough, if maybe uneven, and will need to be cleaned up and even out. You see the difference. Here's the coarse edge and after sewing, and the filed edge much smoother, less rough, and quite shiny. Files can be used to shape a corner when it's too sharp. Now you see the corner is slightly rounded, less sharp and safer. We use a file to remove unwanted solder. For example, the seam of a ring band. And hopefully we use the minimal amount of solder, so filing will be minimal as well. We also use a file to bevel the outside edge of a ring to make it more comfortable on the finger and more wearable. And you can see how the edge has been reshaped. There is a small bevel on the edge and the sharp edge is gone. When cutting wire, some pliers will squish the end of the wire and the result can be messy. You can file it to clean it and even it out. So here it is, nice and even and square. We can use a file to shape a section of wire and make it into a taper. You'll note that I made a groove into my bench pin to help me file the wire more evenly. Here is the taper on the wire, nice and even with a very fine point. As you know, jewelry files are expensive and we need to keep them working for a long time. It's a good reason for taking very good care of them. We must clean them regularly to avoid metal buildup inside the grooves. Tapping on the bench pin periodically as you work will help keeping the file clean, especially when you work with softer metals like copper. You'll have to be very vigilant about that. Use a file card for a more thorough cleaning, brushing in the direction of the grooves to push out all these metal bits that are stuck. And now you have a clean file. We must avoid contaminating our files. Do not file other metals other than silver, gold, brass and copper. Files need to be stored properly, separately. Avoid having them thrown in a drawer and rubbing against one another. A pouch like this is very useful. Whatever you do, they must be kept separately to avoid them being damaged. And then the last bit of advice, keep your files away from pickle or they rust. Oops, like this one. Thank you for watching.